Good morning, people. Good morning. This is Edward Bevilacqua. Here we are on September 17th, 2023. We're in Pahrump. It's dark outside. I will tell you what the weather is, though. Should have been better prepared. Kind of racing. It is currently 68 degrees. And the high is going to be 97, so almost a 30-degree temperature swing. Yeah. I'm just preparing my book. Okay, because we need to have three things before we get started. One, coffee. Let's get that going. Get our coffee. Not too bad. Good morning, Wadabevi. Our thing is in Cleavone. 2, pen, 3, paper to write. I'm going now to these small little journals. Today's going to be a little bit different. So our podcasts are designed for non-believers who are not successful, as opposed to people who are successful but not believers, people who are successful and believers, or people who are not successful and not believers. So if I gave you a diagram, it would look like that. So we're looking for this group. People who do not believe God exists, God does not exist, God is not number one, and they're not successful. Okay? We aren't looking for people because they don't need it. It's not that we're not looking, it's not like we don't care, it's not that people who do not believe are better. No, on the contrary, the goal is to help people who are non-believers become believers. Coconut water. You mean like this? Bonk. Vita Coca. That was one of Daniel Dennis's coconut waters. Okay, so here we are 3 minutes in. Our goal is to help you become successful on your journey, just to help you a little bit become successful. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going to talk about that because it's Sunday. We're going to focus on foundational theology. Right. A lot of criticism by the Christians about foundational theology, from the believers, let's say it that way. A lot of criticism from the believers about foundational theology. Part of the problem is they can't think like a non-believer because they know the truth. John 3:16, John 14:6, etc. They already know that and believe that, so they can't think like a non-believer. They can't understand why you can't just say to somebody, it's right there in John 3:16. It's right there in John 14:6. They don't understand why that has no meaning to people who are not believers. Why it's any different than the screw tape letters, okay, or anything else. So, introduction to foundational theology. In the notes down below is the introduction to the book, new introduction to the book. which is going to include contributions from Judge Scotty and Dave Marlin. I already have Dave Marlin's. And again, the idea is not that God does not exist. The idea is not that Jesus is not the Messiah. The first premise, in fact, the second line in the book says, though the first premise of foundational theology is God exists. This book is not for believers, okay? So the first premise is God exists and that Jesus is who he said he was. That would be more like the second or third premise. Jesus is who he said he is. So foundational theology is not about God does not exist or Jesus is not the Messiah. Jesus is not God. Jesus is not your personal Savior. It's not about any of that. It's about how do you go from being a non-believer to a believer, not depending upon people beating you over the head, bashing you, tongue lashing you with, it's in John 3:16. It's in John 14:6. Read the Bible. Read the GD Bible, man. It's all there. No, that is not what foundational theology is about. It's about what's below that. What is below that? There is the premise. How about this? What if, as a matter of science, not a matter of faith, but what if, as a matter of science, you believe that Jesus was the Messiah? Not as a matter of faith. That's what all believers have. For them, it's a matter of faith. What if it was a matter of science? What if it was just like Neanderthal or dinosaurs or the meteor that hit the Earth? What if it was like that level regarding Jesus? Okay, so foundational theology. Why are people non-believers? Well, let's see. What does it say? Let me pull this over here. Why are people non-believers? In general, the problem is that society over the centuries has overly complicated the understanding of the nature of God. Okay. I haven't found in the Gospels anywhere where Jesus said you got to come back every day. You got to do this. It's really hard stuff. It seems like the words say this, but they actually mean this other stuff over here that has to do with the past, thousands of years ago, and the future, thousands of years hence. It's not as it seems. The plain meaning is not the plain meaning. I have not found that to be how Jesus acted. It seems to me his message was a simple message to simple people. Simple message that simple people could simply understand. So the problem is that it's becoming overly complicated, which means there's confusion, means there's indifference, and it means there's religion. So confusion for non-believers, pseudo-believers, and believers with limited historical knowledge or context. Okay, so that's like the jail preachers, again, not people who go into the jail, but the inmates, incarcerated people who spend their days reading the Bible and believe they have enlightenment. Okay, that's the believers with limited historical knowledge or context. What is confusing? Why are there so many different Christian religions? Or why are there so many different religions? Why so many different Christian denominations? Why so many different Bibles? Why so many different interpretations of what the Bible says? Which we have a shorthand label called debating how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Should there be a need for experts? And if so, why? And then add your own confusing not confusing, oops, as Lucy would say, oops, confusing observations. As a result of the confusion, non-believers typically feel indifferent. In other words, you want me to believe in this stuff that you guys can't even agree on, that you guys have all of these battles, that you won't work together because you disagree on what the meaning of this verse is versus that meaning, or the importance of this verse versus that verse. You guys standing back here as a non-believer, it seems to me that you guys are confused. I'm not confused because it doesn't make any sense. You're confused because you keep arguing and debating upon what the meaning of this thing is, and I don't want to have a God who's that cryptic and confusing. Boom, there you go. That's the need for foundational theology. And then there's religion. Religion versus being spiritual. Religion is the cornerstone, knowingly or not. Everyone's ethics and morals are built upon a religious foundation. Okay, so we're running short of time. Let's go to, we're at 11 minutes in. Let's just leave it at just some factual things. Okay, so there's over 7 billion people in the world. Maybe we can ask ChatGPT. Oops. Or maybe not. Yeah. Okay, we're going to ask ChatGPT. What is the world population today? And the answer is that seems like it's a better question for, okay, wow. Okay, 7.8 billion people. So about 7.8 billion. Let's just be conservative and say it's 7.5 people, 7.5 billion people. How many people of that 7.5 billion identify as Christian? Let's just say it's 2.5. 1/3 of the world population identifies as being Christian. Of that, 2.5, more than half are Catholic, which means the other half, less than half, of the Protestants don't consider the Catholics as Christians. Okay? So 1/3 of the world identifies as Christian, but half of those think the other half isn't Christian. Okay, so now we're down to 1.2 billion people out of 7.5. So 1/6 of the population identifies as being Christian. However, of that 1.2 billion people, the question is, how many of those people agree that the other people are actually Christians? Right? They're going away fast, people. They're going away fast. So what you're ultimately going to find out, and then we break it down to, well, how many of that smaller number, let's say it's half. Let's say it's 750 million people. So 10% of the world's population agrees that they are all Christians. Okay, that the other people are not real Christians. Now, of that 0.75 billion people, how many actually live the Christian life? Let's say it's half. Let's say it's half, which is a big number Because when I'm out here on the street, I really don't see many people acting like Christians in the way described by Jesus in the red letter or Nietzsche. Okay, so you have about 5% of the population, 1 out of every 20 people is righteously justified, saying that the other 95% of the people, the other 19 people, are not going to be saved. They're not going to heaven. And you know, if you go back to the beginning, though, that God created us and God is perfect, why would he do such a bad job? Why would it be, and knowing, all knowing, so God knew when he created people, he had an intention to have people, to create people who were good people, people he loved, giving them the gift of life. And really, God knew in the beginning 95% of those people were going to fail. They're going to let him down. Why would God do that? Rebirth. Okay. Rebirth, karma. Well, but that's not the Christian view. Wadabevi, that's not the Christian view. The Christian view is one and done. This is it, and we're going to heaven. So 1 out of every 19 people, best case in the world. So God failed on 19 of 20 people. I'm sorry, 1 out of 20 people are saved. And God failed, came up short. Well, no, but people have free will. Free will. Well, yeah, but God already knew that. Free will is only in our minds. God already knows the outcome, right? God planned this, according to the believers. God planned this. It doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense that God would knowingly, intentionally create people who he loved in his own image, knowing that 19 out of 20 people were going to come up short. And that if you believe something else like Buddhism, like Hinduism, like whatever, or you were just a good person, too bad, you could be a really bad person. You could be, as George Carlin would say, a really, really bad person. You could be a really, really bad person. You're saved. But you could be a really good person and not be saved. So that is why we need foundational theology, to answer those simple, basic questions, because they're not going to be answered by saying, read the Bible, unfortunately, because people who don't believe the Bible are not going to use the Bible as the reference to why it's true. That's why we have the need for foundational theology. And the goal of foundational theology is take people from where they are with the concerns that they have and help them see God exists. Jesus is who he said he was. That he's not a liar, a lunatic. He is the Lord. As a matter, and as icing on the cake, the cherry on top, it's a matter of science, not a matter of faith. Faith is salvation. Doesn't say you can't have it as a matter of science. No, you have to believe in the mystery or you're not saved. Once again, that's why we have the need for foundational theology, because there are questions when only 5 out of 100 people, 1 out of every 20 person is saved. There's something wrong. I hope everybody can agree. I hope that those 1 out of every 20 people agree there's something wrong with communicating the message if only 5 out of 100 people get it. If you had a business, if you had a restaurant, if you were teaching people how to build a car and only 5 out of 100 people understood what you're saying, there's probably something wrong with the delivery of the message, not the person hearing the message. Okay, so we're way over time. My apologies once again. Om Niva, whatever, hallelujah. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. We're here to help you move forward in life, becoming a believer and a Christian, a believer that Jesus is the Messiah. And with that, Shiva Shalom. and cut. Kool-Aid, purple.